going on, everybody? Thank you so much for coming back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Hellboy. I haven't gotten around to reviewing the Guillermo del Toro films. I really love those films. They were a huge part of my teenage years, and I have a lot of attachment to those films. I love what Ron Perlman did with the role. He just already visually kind of already fit the role. I'm a huge fan of the comic books, and I feel like Guillermo del Toro and Ron Perlman and everybody else that was a part of those films did such a great job bringing those stories to life in a new way and kind of staying true to the source material. So leading up to this movie, I was pretty excited. I did, however, miss it in theaters, which is why this review is coming to you now. I ended up getting the Blu-ray back at Christmas time, and I watched it a couple weeks back. I'm a little bit late on getting this review done, but yeah, it's still fresh in my mind, and I wanted to talk about it and just kind of throw up a review, and I will get to the Guillermo del Toro films, which I'll go ahead and say right now I do really enjoy. But yeah, this one stars David Harbour of Stranger Things fame. He plays Hopper in Stranger Things, as well as he's going to be in the upcoming Black Widow, which already should have been out at this point. But yeah, I was really excited to see what he was going to do with the role. I really enjoyed David Harbour. I think he's a likable and fun actor, and I think he's pretty badass. And when I started to see all the images coming out of him as Hellboy, I thought it was pretty cool. I was pretty excited. All the imagery and everything like that looked really, really cool, and I was excited to see what this movie was going to be. Now that I saw the movie, it's okay. I don't love this movie. A lot of people really trashed on this movie. It's not a terrible movie in my opinion. It's not the worst. Some people acted like this movie was unwatchable or god-awful. And is it? No, not really. But for me, it's just not the best. I think that they just kind of created a really muddled story that's really all over the place, and a film that doesn't really have the character development that the other films had. Now, that's not to say those other films were perfect, but specifically that first one with Guillermo del Toro was a really solid film. I think it stayed true to what Hellboy was and was a lot of fun as just a fantasy over-the-top film. And Ron Perlman really brought something really fun and interesting to the character of Hellboy while also staying true to the character from the pages. So what did I think of David Harbour as Hellboy? I thought it was pretty cool. I enjoyed his interpretation of the character, but I think the biggest issue when it comes to his character is the writing. There was moments where this film has humor back to back to back, jokes and jokes and jokes, and a lot of it just doesn't land. I don't really necessarily blame the actors, because you can definitely tell that they were trying and they thought this was going to be something a lot cooler. But yeah, the script and the dialogue a lot of times was just kind of lackluster. And a lot of times while I was watching this movie with my girlfriend, we kept looking at each other and we were just kind of like, that line didn't really land too well. One thing I really did enjoy about this film were the special effects. Now, some of the weakest special effects in this film has to be the CG, which is, you know, definitely unfortunate because we're in an age where CG can look really badass. And as somebody who doesn't mind CG, I enjoy CG, especially when it comes to big fantasy universes. I don't mind if it's a little cartoony and if it kind of fits the universe and it doesn't really necessarily look realistic. I don't need it to be. I know some people really like realistic CG, and if they don't have it realistic, they don't want it at all. But I'm the kind of person who just loves the cartoony CG if it fits that world. And this movie, it does that at times. There's definitely some CG in this film that fits the tone and the visual style of the film and feels fun and engaging and feels like it fits in with the rest of the film. And then there's these moments, specifically like this big sequence when Hellboy is fighting these giants, where it's just so clear that he's in a green room, a green screen room, and yeah, the giants just are clearly not there. The way he's moving and the way the camera's moving, it just kind of disconnects you from the film because he doesn't really look like he's fighting anything, and it definitely looks fake. And stuff like that kind of took me out of it. I couldn't help but watch it and think, yeah, this kind of takes me out of it. I'm not really buying into what's happening, and it was kind of distracting me at a certain point. On top of that, this movie goes for gore. Like, they went with the R rating, which the other films did not have, and you know, I was excited to see what they would do with an R rating. But yeah, outside of language and just obscene gore, I don't really feel this movie really needed an R rating. The R rating really didn't service the story in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, it just felt like they went over the top with the gore at times. Like, they just wanted to be as gory as humanly possible. The final sequence of this film, there's these big creatures that the villain brings out, and it's just slicing through all these civilians. And there's just one time where this big creature like stabs through one of the, like a human's head, and it just is using their body and like spiking through them, and their bodies are like attached to their legs, and it's like a huge mess. There's these huge monsters just going around just slashing through civilians, and I feel like you don't really care, and it's just kind of like, oh, they're just going for gore for the sake of gore. And I'm a fan of gore. I think if gore is done well and if it fits the tone of the film where it can be a little bit over the top, I'm all for it. You know, I like the Saw films. I like films that can have a lot of gore in them, because if it's done and executed well, it could be pretty cool and pretty effective, or it can be done in a fun and kind of lighthearted way. And this film kind of teeters on both ends. Sometimes it tries to be serious and grounded and creepy, and sometimes it tries to be silly and over the top and fantastical, and I don't really feel like the balance was all there. But outside of those things, the biggest thing about this film that just was lackluster for me was the story. By the end of the film, I really didn't care too much for the characters or anything that was happening. watching, there are a lot of really forgettable elements. Right after you finish watching the movie, there's things about the movie that just kind of start to leave your mind, and I can go back and remember them as I think about the movie. But yeah, it's not a film that I feel like I'm rushing to tell anybody to go watch. I think if you were a fan of Hellboy, if you enjoy those other films, check it out. It's harmless. It's a harmless watch, but I would recommend going in with the mentality that it's probably not going to be better than the other ones. Now, if you enjoyed this film more than the other ones, or you enjoyed this film on an overall level, I can see that. There is some really cool stuff here. I think there is some fun stuff if you're a fan of Hellboy. Overall, the film does have some really cool visuals. Some of the CG, like I said, is a little cartoony at times compared to the other special effects in the film, but I did enjoy a lot of the action and visuals of this film. Now, did I care about the stakes and what was happening in the story? Not so much, and I think that's definitely the biggest downfall of this film, is by the end of the film, I just really didn't care too much about what was going on. It just felt like I was watching what was happening, I understood what was happening, but I just really didn't care, and the story kind of felt jumbled, and characters would come and go, and there's characters with little character development that you're supposed to care for at certain points. And as a fan of Hellboy, as a fan of those other films, and as a fan of the comic books, I was able to kind of fill the gaps with things that I already understand and know about this story. But yeah, as a story on its own, it doesn't really create suspense and things for you to really care about. Now, outside of the CGI that can be a little cartoony at times, one of the things I really enjoyed about this film was a lot of the practical effects. Now, when it comes to Hellboy himself, I think that they went a little bit over the top with his practical effects and his bodysuit. He doesn't really look real and tangible, whereas when you watch the ones with Ron Perlman, he kind of already has the facial structure of Hellboy from the comics, and his body style and just everything that he kind of already looks like kind of just fits in Hellboy. So when you have the additional practical effects and different makeup that's done onto him, it feels like it just amplifies his look and makes him look more like Hellboy. Whereas in this one, it's clear that David Harbour had to just have so much makeup and so much added to him that it almost doesn't really look like him, and it sometimes feels like it looks uncomfortable and like it's kind of like he's struggling to get a performance through all the makeup. However, on the flip side, the character that you guys see in the thumbnail of this, yeah, one of the coolest practical effects. They got this person who is essentially like a contortionist and can move their bodies around and kind of moved around all creepy. At a certain point, I thought that the makeup and all that was CG, but as you watch the film, you could definitely tell that a lot of that character was the practical effects, and I really enjoyed the makeup, the voice, the creepiness. Easily the creepiest character and creepiest looking character in the film, and easily some of the best special effects makeup done in this entire film. I enjoyed every single sequence that had that character in it, and yeah, that was definitely the one thing that I was the most excited to see if they were ever to do a sequel. As for the supporting cast, forgettable 100% for me. There was nothing about the supporting characters and the supporting cast that I even really remembered. There were certain cast members that I remembered solely because I knew them from other things, but they weren't really given a really strong script and really strong characters that really gave you much to care about later on. And then the villain of this film is played by Milla Jovovich, who, you know, you may know from the Resident Evil films, and I enjoy her as an actress. She could be a little bit over the top at times, and depending on the movie, you know, she kind of has to kind of fit the film and what's going on, but I do enjoy her as an actor. I thought it was pretty cool to see her in this movie. I think that she played the role well, but at times her performance felt a little bit heightened compared to everybody else's, but I did enjoy her costume and just kind of her overall vibe. But again, this is a character that is just bad to be bad. She's not really given motivations or anything that's, you know, really develops her character outside of her being evil and wanting to conquer things because she's evil. So Hellboy, yeah, this is not the reboot I was hoping for. I think based on the lack of box office success and the fact that this wasn't really, you know, widely loved by critics and fans alike, I can't really see a sequel for this happening. If there is a sequel, I will watch it for sure. I don't mind having it in my collection. It looks nice next to all of the other Hellboy movies. I think I have it right here. And yeah, I don't really have a problem with owning this movie or even rewatching it at some point, but you know, it is a movie that's a bit forgettable. As a fan of fantasy and the comic books and those older films, it is a cool movie to kind of pop on just visually, but story-wise, I don't really see myself watching this to be gripped into the story or engaged in the characters or emotionally connected to anything that's really happening. So yeah, guys, that's gonna be my thoughts on the reboot of Hellboy. What do you guys think of this movie? Do you enjoy the Guillermo del Toro films more? Did you like this movie? Did you not like this movie? Did you hate this movie? Maybe you love this movie. Definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. Hit that like button down below if you guys enjoyed this video. Leave your comments down below. I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say about this movie. A big thanks to all of you guys who have been supporting this channel continuously. I am greatly appreciating it, and I have been keeping attention to those of you who have been watching. So yeah, guys, leave your thoughts down below. Let me know what you thought about this movie, and I'll see each and every single one of you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.